Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Boxing Source radio show here on October 17th, 2022. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source on social media. Of course, you can follow the social media outlets through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also through YouTube. I have the YouTube channel. Of course, you can also visit the website, theboxingsource.net. We'll have, like the latest videos in reference to the YouTube channel. We'll also have the rankings for each division and update them as often as possible, and also have the pound for pound ratings on there, which will be updated probably within the next couple of days. So we will be updating the Boxing Source pound for pound list within the next couple of days. So be sure to check that out there in the website, theboxingsource.net. And we have, a lot of stuff to talk about, here in this particular episode of the Boxing Source radio show, as we had a lot of fights that did take place pretty much over the course of Saturday. And that is what we're going to, break down here in this, particular episode. And we're going to, kind of like go through this thing here as much as we possibly can. So you do have that, but also before we, kind of like go through that, want to give a quick shout out to Rev Masters, who is a affiliate through Bet US that also supports the Boxing Source. So shout out to Rev Masters here that supports the Boxing Source. But what we're going to do is we're going to be starting off with the fights that happened over at the O2 Arena in the UK, London, right? You had, a few fights that took place there that was showcased on ESPN Plus, and also through Sky Sports over in the UK. So we're going to, kind of go through that here. I wanted to, first talk about the co-feature bout that was on there. The, kind of like was co-promoted by Top Rank. You had unified titles there on the line at the super featherweight division. In the super featherweight division, you had the IBF, IBO, WBC, and WBO super featherweight titles on the line, as Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgartner stepped in the ring to have their fight. This was one of the more anticipated fights there in women's boxing. They've been talking about a whole lot of smack, for a long time. And so it was pretty much culminating to the bout that did happen on Saturday. But before I go into that in a little more detail, I wanted to bring in a guest to talk here on this particular podcast, a great person that I have talked with over the course of, the year, and multiple podcasts throughout this podcast, and also through the podcast that he has on War a Week Radio Network. That's right, the host of War Week Radio Network, Mr. Joseph Herron.
James, how are you doing this evening, my friend?
Doing good. I feel like I've, rested up, from the weekend and stuff like that. So, just here to kind of like go over, what happened in a big weekend in boxing. So it's a lot.
You're a hardworking man, brother. No rest for the weary.
Definitely not. I was, going to talk about that opening bout in the ESPN Plus / Sky Sports card over the O2 Arena. Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner. Like I said, unified titles on the line. One of the more anticipated fights in women's boxing. And I was looking forward to this bout. You talk about a rivalry, outside of the ring, they definitely had that. Mayer was, coming in there undefeated. Baumgartner only had one loss. Became a world champion with, her knockout win over Terry Harper. Where she, as some people say, knocked the Sonic rings off of Terry Harper. But yeah, that was, a real big shot there, by Alicia Baumgartner. And she, got off that particular momentum to get into this particular bout against Michaela Mayer, and they were talking a whole lot of trash in the week leading up to the fight. And yeah, I was thinking like, yo, this is gonna be a real slobber knocker type of fight, But going into those first rounds, those first two rounds, I was kind of surprised at the opening at that particular bout because I thought it was going to be something where Michaela Mayer was going to start out, kind of like use her height, her reach, uh, work behind a jab and that type of thing. But it was more of Alicia Baumgartner showing her skills, having her strategy and implementing her strategy right off the bat, moving her head and everything, doing feints, jabbing, but jabbing to the body,
Yep.
and kind of like just saying, hey, okay, if I see that open spot to the body, that's what I'm going to do. So I did that. And she also, looked like the faster fighter in those opening couple of rounds. And,
Yep.
in those 3 rounds, I was like saying, yo, Michaela Myers looking really slow in this bout. And that it almost seemed like Alicia could do just about anything she wanted in those first, few rounds or so. And with her boxing, it was just like it was very fluent.
Yep.
But within the 4th and 5th round, you kind of like seen Alicia kind of like, tone back a little bit and get more reliant on trying to catch Michaela Mayer with her right hand.
Yep.
It looked like she wanted to just score that big shot and just go bam and try to see if she could work off a counter. But it didn't necessarily work like that. And because of that, Michaela Mayer kind of like got herself back into it, got herself back in the fight, was a little bit more successful with the jab. Like, I thought she would have implemented from the first, part. And so it looked like she was pretty much getting back into it within the 5th and 6th round. But then that momentum kind of like waned away in the second half of the fight, but to the point of where it wasn't like you've seen much of an advantage from either fighter. So it only took like a little bit from like one fighter. In my case, I thought it was Baumgartner to kind of like take a round or two,
Yep.
up until the last 2 rounds. And so I was like, looking, I'm like, hey, with that being said, maybe it could have been close for some people, maybe not. But for me, I didn't really think it was close after 8 rounds. So rounds 9 and 10, I was thinking like, yo, like maybe they'll have some type of urgency. Maybe the coaches will say, hey, look, you're behind, you got to do something. And in the 9th and especially the 10th round, I really didn't see that from either fighter.
That sense of urgency, yeah.
Right. So you kind of like didn't necessarily see that. And, I was, fairly confident of who I thought the winner was, but it went to the scorecards and the scorecards came out and then it said like, 7 rounds to 3 for Michaela Mayer. And then it was like 96-95 and 96-95 in favor of Alicia Baumgartner for her to get the split decision win and become IBF, WBC, WBO, and IBO champion.
That's right. Yep.
And I was like, that first score that was read was 7-3 for Mayer. And I'm like,
yep, 97-93 for Michaela Mayer. That's right.
And I'm like,
huh? Yeah, I too scored the fight 6 rounds to 4 for Alicia Baumgartner.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you said it. And Well, first of all, James, that was a brilliant recap of everything that happened. I couldn't have said it better myself, sir. Great job. And yeah, after you give away the first 3 rounds, well, you've really dug yourself in a hole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that means Michaela Meyer, according to that one judge, won the last 7 rounds.
I guess.
I mean, honestly, I could see it going either way, because I do agree that Michaela Meyer did control the action in the back half of the fight and for the great majority of the back half. But look, when you give your opponent the first 3 rounds and there's only 10 2-minute rounds,
Yep.
that's a serious deficit. And the way you score fights, yeah, it's a round by round basis. I ended up scoring 6-4 as a result of that. I thought Michaela Meyer took over the back half of the fight, but yeah, it was too great of a deficit for only a 10-round fight. But I can understand, though, and I can see it going either way. I can see it being a draw, but I can't see 7-3 Michaela Meyer. And once again, that's grounds for a rematch. It was very controversial. I could see it going either way. I personally preferred the heavier, more consequential shots from Alicia Bumgarner. I thought at the very close competitive rounds that could have gone either way, I tilted towards Alicia Bumgarner because it seemed that she was throwing the harder leather, right? The heavier, more consequential, more impactful shots. But then again, I mean, Michaela Meyer did a great job of controlling range with that jab, with her footwork. She fought a very smart fight after round 3. And what do you think, James, though? Michaela or Alicia Bumgarner basically saying, no, we're not going to do a rematch. What are your thoughts on that? Even though in this situation, I think a rematch is merited. And I think the fans would love to see one. But because of all the bad blood, I think, and because it was a very difficult fight, and because Michaela Meyer really seemed to control distance and take over the back half of the fight, do you think that's why she's at this time denying Michaela Meyer the rematch?
I don't necessarily think so. I think there's like a couple of reasons behind it. But I'll go into that a little bit. Wanted to add in another guest on the show, longtime columnist, a longtime contributor to the Boxing Source radio show, Brother Terrell, the chef, coming in from Tampa. What's going on, Brother Terrell?
Hey, was there boxing this past weekend? Was there boxing?
Nope.
Oh, I thought I missed something.
What's up, Terrell? How you doing, brother? It's good to talk to you again, my friend.
Hey, everything's good, man. Just excited from this more than full weekend of boxing this past weekend.
It's outstanding, wasn't it?
I mean, just it's so many storylines to talk about, to dissect and discuss things like that. But from what you guys were just saying, with Baumgartner, I think she will be reluctant to a rematch once somebody puts a great card to get together. And of course, we already know money talks. So she'll be the headliner for a fight. But once somebody put a good amount of money on the line, she will be able to be doing a rematch. And the thing about it, is she signed with who is she with?
She's a boxer, isn't she?
Who, Baumgartner? I thought
Yes.
Baumgartner is a free agent, and Mayer's with Top Rank. That's why that particular bout was co-promoted by Top Rank.
Oh, that's right. Savannah Marshall's the one with Boxer, right? Because they were the lead promoter of the event, right?
Right.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, but even if they put a card together here back in the stateside, once again, if the money's right, I'm pretty sure she'll be open to be doing a rematch, and we'll get to see another version of the supreme trash talk between these two.
Yeah, you know what? I thought the build-up and the promotion of the event, I thought it really took on a life of its own, and both women did a tremendous job of promoting the event. And boy, what can you say about the British fight fans? They're by far the best on the globe. I mean, they just showed up and really made it feel like a tremendous event. It was. I mean, they really turned up, and yeah, what can you say about them? They really, in my opinion, they made the event, and the women came through, gave them a brilliant product. But if you're Alicia Baumgartner, why would you want to fight anywhere else but the UK when they truly do appreciate the women seemingly a lot more than the US fight audience?
Yeah. That was the thing about what I kind of was saying in reference to a potential rematch with Michaela Mayer. Because one, that's easily the most lucrative fight that could be made in this particular instance for Alicia Baumgartner. Having a fight for the other belt, so you'd be undisputed. Um, I mean, I don't really see you could have it just to say that you're undisputed. But outside of that, by far the most lucrative fight would be against Michaela Mayer, and have it, in the U.S. Like if you could have it in, like you said, if they have something in Vegas where they could pay, a fee or resort fee or whatever it is to host that fight, then you could just go ahead and do that, because you really don't have like that many other options there in that particular division, especially when it comes to having a lucrative fight of sorts there. So, I mean, a rematch against Michaela Mayer would be the probably the best or most lucrative option. But Alicia Baumgartner was really gearing towards saying, "Hey, I want to get that last belt and become undisputed."
Yeah. Yep. Well, look, if the demand is there, and once again, I always like to say this, if the real bosses of boxing, the fans, create the demand, it's virtually impossible for any promoter to deny that. And when you look at the options, like you just stated, I mean, how many more intriguing fights are there around the world for Alicia Baumgartner?
Right.
I mean, you're talking about a talent pool of about maybe 140 participants around the world. This isn't like the men's bracket, right? That's what makes this rematch so likely, right?
Yeah.
This is not like, I mean, like when you look at Deontay Wilder and what he's done, and you look at the entire landscape of the heavyweight division, well, there are a lot more participants to choose from. Like Anthony Joshua in his next fight, like Tyson Fury in his next fight. The women, it's a very limited talent pool.
Yeah.
So it would be absolutely insane to deny the fans of a merited, a warranted, and a much clamored for rematch.
There's only like one other option that maybe I would see for Alicia Baumgartner.
Oh, Choi.
And well, yeah, it's Choi. But after that, if you're not going to have a rematch with Michaela Mayer, your only chance, and it's still unlikely, highly unlikely to me, is to go up one division and face the undisputed champion, Katie Taylor.
There it is. I knew you were going to say that. There it is.
What about
what? With her power, I think it could be a very interesting fight. But do you really want to do that if you're Alicia Baumgartner?
What about the prospect of her facing Amanda Serrano?
Amanda Serrano's a great fight too.
Yeah, that would be a great fight too. Definitely a great fight. I mean, you have four. That's what we just named: Mayer, Baumgartner, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, that were all involved in fights this year, all involved in big fights this year. That could still potentially have something going into 2023 where you could still have very interesting fights. So hey, maybe that could be a possibility in 2023 after Katie Taylor. I think she does have a fight coming up this year.
Yep.
So we'll see like how that materializes since the rematch for Taylor and Serrano kind of like fell apart. So we got to see what would be next for Katie Taylor after her bout. But for Alicia Baumgartner, like you said, Joseph, there really isn't that many other options out there. For her.
We just named them all.
Yeah, we just named them. Like the Choi fight is probably the only other option that she has at that particular division at super featherweight, but you're not going to have her facing like a Delphine Persoon at this particular point or Hamadouche at this particular point. That wouldn't really, make that much sense. So why not just, either like you said, if you want to go for undisputed, even though you pretty much have every belt that's out there and you're already recognized as the top fighter in the division, okay, you want to have that last belt, cool. You could just say, you could claim that you'd be undisputed. But then after that, what other options would you have left, going through, the rest of 2023? You know what I mean?
That's
it.
And we just
need
those options.
That's it. All those midget fights would make sure that Bob Garner does not become a broke bitch, and not my words.
Yeah, those are your words. Those definitely are your words.
Well, I tell you what, congratulations, though, Alicia Baumgartner. You know what? Controversial victory, but hey, she'll take it nonetheless.
Yeah, she'll definitely take it. To be honest, I thought it was like 6 rounds to 4 for Alicia Baumgartner.
I scored it the same way, James.
To me, even if like people had it like swing rounds, I really couldn't see where Mayer had more than 4 rounds in there. So I thought it was, fairly a clear win. But it almost like they did like say or bring up the whole thing about potentially extending the thing as far as like either the length of time per round or the number of rounds. But like I said with the last one, when they were talking about it for Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, I'm like, if y'all gonna have those extra rounds or the extra minutes, then you got to have that extra money. And if you're not gonna have that extra money, then they're not going to pretty much go for that. So that was the thing for that particular fight for me to kind of like cover that. Now I wanted to go into the main event, one of the most anticipated bouts in women's boxing, and probably the most anticipated bout in women's boxing. And for me, it's just crazy that you would have 3 bouts that happened this year in women's boxing that were pretty much the biggest events that you could have. But it culminated with this one: Claressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall for the undisputed middleweight championship. Both fighters coming in there undefeated. Savannah Marshall having the WBO version of the middleweight title at the time. Claressa Shields with the other belts. And this one was, very anticipated. Like you said, a huge rivalry between the two. We know about, what happened in the Olympic Games or the trials or whatever it is. One loss in the amateurs for Claressa Shields. Hadn't lost since. It's almost like Andre Ward, but just having 1 loss with it. And was really looking forward to this particular fight. People, kind of like were thinking, hey, you had Savannah Marshall. She's coming in there. She's tall. She's rangy. She's had, a good number of knockouts, coming up for this particular fight. But on the flip side, Claressa Shields, 2-time undisputed champion, had fought multiple champions, over the course of, the amount of fights that she had, even though it was like, 12 fights up to that particular point.
Yep.
And, I was just looking forward to it. And I was telling people that Claressa Shields was going to go ahead and win this bout. But at the opening of this particular bout, I did not expect Claressa to throw with as much emphasis as she did with those punches. And I think that Savannah Marshall was surprised that Claressa Shields really sat down on all of her punches, especially early. And
it set the tone for the rest of the fight, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And I'm telling you, like Savannah Marshall, you talk about chin. Savannah Marshall got a chin because she was getting tagged up in the first half of the fight. She was getting tagged up. And, there was like one point, it was like near the end of the 5th round or the 6th round, where Clarissa Shields hit her like square the jaw with a big shot. Blah! I was like,
Yep.
oh man. And I really thought that would have really stunned Savannah Marshall. I think there were a couple of times where she did get stunned a little bit. But
yeah, she got her attention easily. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, Savannah Marshall, was still in there, still doing some work. I think the thing with it, and I was watching, through the thing with ESPN Plus and whatnot, and you saw like something from like the 2nd and 3rd round where Clarissa Shields was, backing up to the ropes and allowing, Savannah Marshall to, start throwing. And while she may have missed and things like that, you had like Tim Bradley talking about, oh, she should go back in, have her back to the ropes. This is not looking good or whatever it is. I'm like,
well, but what I thought was really surprising, James, was, and once again, credit to John David Jackson for doing the brilliant work in the gym with Clarissa Shields.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the shoulder roll, the counter roll, her defensive posture against the ropes. That was surprising to me. I didn't expect to see that. That was masterful. She really showed a lot of skill in that performance. And she, dare I say, outclassed Savannah Marshall. And that wasn't a very difficult fight to score. I scored at 7-3 Clarissa Shields.
Well, I that I do like I said, I do admire her defensive work in the ropes. However, I think that was to her detriment. When the average person is looking on, you think that Marshall's just cornering her, coming out the ring, and just getting to her. So on just on the eye level, that didn't look so good. I mean, you got to have really boxing eyes to be able to dissect that. And it's funny as I was listening to the broadcast, and of course it's overseas, and of course they're rooting for Marshall, and the broadcast was definitely high level pro Marshall and things like that. I mean, but at the end of 9, skills pay the bills. Clarissa Shields definitely showed she's a class above her. However, Marshall did come on late, though. She did come on late.
She did. She did.
Yeah.
And you know what? Clarissa Shields was very, very humble. I really enjoyed her humble speech after the fight, giving Savannah Marshall a lot of credit, saying that, yeah, she hurt me, and I was basically fighting with one eye in the towards the tail end of that fight. And you know what? It was just a really brilliant fight, brilliant main event.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and once again, the crowd showed up and they delivered. But have you ever heard a more biased, one fighter friendly crowd in your life? I mean, they were, when Savannah Marshall wasn't doing anything, she was just letting her hands go, throwing a nothing jab, they would erupt. It was, and I was leery. I was thinking that, oh my gosh, the judges are going to be influenced by that overwhelming Savannah Marshall crowd. But they proved to be professionals on that night, and they scored the fight correctly. But yeah, what a crowd, what a fight, what a main event. Let's see it again. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing it again. I mean, even though it was Clarissa Shields really showed her class in that event, it was so good though, and it was such a beautifully violent fight. I'd love to see it again, man. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was a very great fight. Like you said, even though it was, 2 scores of, 2 scores of 7-3 and 1 score of 6-4 for Clarissa Shields. And you did see, like, at the point around that 7th, 8th, and 9th round where Clarissa Shields was kind of like getting a little bit tired, or having the output be lowered a little bit, and that it could have been something where Marshall could have got herself back in the fight. But I do think that Clarissa Shields was, aware of being tired, and what she did was she didn't allow Marshall to like really flow with the offense. So she got in close, and if she really didn't have the energy to throw punches, what she did was she initiated a clinch, and she was able to clinch and kind of like halt the offense of Savannah Marshall. So I thought that was very smart on her part for that one. But like you said, it was great action. And in the 10th round, you've seen where, in comparison to the co-feature bout with Mayer and Baumgartner, here you saw them both going at it, both trying to get that last round.
And yeah, say what you want about 2-minute rounds, James. And I know there are a lot of critics against that. But when you have 2-minute rounds, you're forced to work. It gives you that sense of urgency. Hey, we've only got 2 minutes to work.
Yep.
Right? And it makes for an all-action fight. There's something to be said for women's 2-minute rounds. And I tell you what, it made for a riveting contest on Saturday.
Yep. I think it was key for this particular bout, and it was key for that Taylor Serrano bout too.
Absolutely, brother. That was a great fight too. So the women really delivered on the biggest stages of boxing. When you look at Serrano Taylor and you look at Shields Marshall, boy, they really delivered in front of a very big audience, and this can only be good for the landscape of women's boxing.
Yeah, go ahead, Terrell. Yeah, one thing you pointed out during the course of the fight, you posted on Twitter on how slow Savannah Marshall was, and I kind of compared to Callum Smith in terms of just being tall, lanky, and remember you said that?
Yeah.
That was definitely a factor early on. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought for Marshall in those first few rounds, she was just she was coming forward, but you could see it was almost like when she was moving her feet, it was like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, which kind of like gave the opportunity for Claressa Shields, if she wanted to, was to get in and out of the pocket, like work, bop, 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 and then get out of the pocket. So, for me, with Savannah Marshall, I kind of feel like it was almost like Peter Fury was trying to implement the Tyson Fury strategy for Savannah Marshall against Claressa Shields to try to see if she could come forward, corner her, and then try to work her, in the ropes or in the corner. And then when it came to the clinch, try to lean on her and stuff like that. But that really doesn't work. It didn't work for Savannah Marshall in this particular sense,
Well, James, I mean, you're comparing though apples to oranges. That's Tyson Fury, brother. I mean, look, not, and I don't want to talk about that very much because I don't want to take away from the majesty of the event that we saw on Saturday. But one thing that Tyson Fury does extremely well to disrupt the timing and rhythm of a counterpuncher, he's got the consistent feinting motion with his feet, with his head, with his upper body, and it completely disrupts the timing and rhythm of a counterpuncher. And you're not going to learn that in one camp. You're not going to learn that in one camp. And so it was impossible to implement that with Savannah Marshall. God bless her. She did a great job. She did all she could. And she obviously laid some leather, man, on Claressa Shields. But, yeah, you can't implement that kind of craft, man, in one camp.
Yeah, that's true. And, and you did mention the thing with Claressa Shields after the fight and, what she was saying after the fight because, kind of leading into the fight, there was talks about, potentially Savannah Marshall that, should see what happens with this fight. And after that, it might be it for Savannah Marshall. But Claressa Shields said, no, I'm like, you should go ahead and continue your career. You'll be very successful, so it's like, why not just, keep going and, give him, like you said, what happened there at the O2 Arena, as many people that were there in attendance for the O2 Arena, and the reports from Sky Sports that, up to 2 million viewers, were watching this particular event. Like you have, someone that could be like a superstar, in your hands. I don't see how it can't be like having another, build up like Katie Taylor was built up. So you could still, go off that particular momentum, and Savannah Marshall could still, continue her career, particularly at middleweight, because we're not sure about Claressa Shields. She could be a middleweight. She could be a super middleweight. Who knows?
Yeah, you know what? And the options, once again, the options are very thin. If you look at BoxRec, right? You look at Claressa Shields, she's the #1 middleweight out of a pool of about 21.
Mm-hmm.
Not very many options. So, hey, but the important thing is from the business end of things. When you score a big hit like this, you've got to come back sooner rather than later. You've
Yeah.
got to come back with another big event within the next 4 or 5 months. You have to. Strike while the iron's hot. That's what this business is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing about it is with Savannah Marshall, she has the frame where she could, not only be a 160, but also be a 168. Now, if they have as much as they have to invest in her, she could potentially move up to 168 and face the undisputed champion 168 and Franchon Cruz Dezern. And if y'all got the money, if Boxer has the money, if Ben Shalom has the money, then hey, they could say, hey, Franchon was there in attendance, to support Clarissa Shields. But Ben Shalom could give her a phone call and be like, hey, maybe you could, come over to the O2 or whatever it is and have a fight with Savannah Marshall. And that could be for, undisputed at super middleweight.
Indeed. Indeed. I tell you what, it's going to be interesting to see where the promoters take this from here, but it's up to them. But yeah, if you're smart, you just scored a big hit in an all-action fight, a great card, great turnout. Let's keep this momentum going. Keep the enthusiasm going. You've got to strike while the iron's hot. You've got to put together another big event within the next 3-4 months. You have to.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Clarissa Shields always saying, no one's going to give me credit? I mean, I don't get that. I truly do not get that. I mean, Olympic medal.
Well, I will say this, Terrell. With the Mark Kriegel piece that they showed on ESPN Plus, it really, really was emotional, and it brought tears to my eyes to watch that backstory, and then to hear her humbly accept victory, and to give her opponent credit, to even thank all the British fans, even though they weren't on her side. That's the kind of Clarissa Shields I want to hear from this point forward. That's the kind of athlete that people want to galvanize behind. No more of this race stuff. No more of the I'm not getting credit. No more of that nonsense. No more of the misogynistic nonsense that I'm not getting paid what I deserve. No more of that. Fans want to see a humble badass who puts forth a great product and is grateful for the opportunity. That's what fans want to get behind. And if she can continue to do that, yeah, her market value will increase infinitely.
Now, I would have to see how people receive her in these next couple of weeks. Yeah, I've seen the piece with Mark Kriegel. I've seen her documentary that came out a couple of years ago. That was a great documentary, by the way. And yeah, I think going by that route would really help her out. I had to see how maybe she feels about going through that direction. He's had the promoter Dimitri Salita that's had her back for a long time. Dimitri Salita has pretty much been one of the biggest supporters of the Boxing Source. So shout out to Dimitri Salita on that.
You know what? That's a very good point, James, because when no American promoters wanted to have anything to do with Clarissa Shields, she's not a huge ticket seller. She, would say some things that would turn people off. And Dimitri Salita actually signed her, put an independent pay-per-view on for her, and stood by her, got her this big event.
Yep.
So you have to feel good for one of the good guys of the sport, Dimitri Salita. And I'll say this, I've known him for years, probably over a decade, and he is one of the class acts. He's one of the good guys of the sport. So you have to feel happy for Dimitri Salita at this point. He's done a great job with her brand, rebuilding her brand, and it's beautiful to see it pay off like this.
Yep. And that's the thing that what you mentioned is one thing that Clarissa Shields was stated before this fight when I asked about working with Dimitri Salita is that whatever it was that she was asking for, Dimitri Salita went the extra mile to try to get that for her. you know. So having those type of results, having that all women's pay-per-view with her headlining, having the contract that she had in order to get the amount of money that she's getting here at this particular point, culminating with the fight against Savannah Marshall. That was, you know, the work of Demetrius Salita. So, he definitely should get credit, you know, for that and being very supportive for Clarissa Shields. And now, you know, we'll see, you know, what's next up or what's
well. If you don't mind, I'd like to tell you guys a story on what a great guy Demetrius Salita is, and this is a personal story, right?
All right.
So about 10 years ago, my father passed away. And I was doing the pugilist corner on the old East Side Boxing, if you guys remember that on Blog Talk Radio. And I had a bunch of fighters scheduled on my 2-hour show, and it was the same day as my dad's rosary. And so I asked my brother Javen Sugar Hill Stewart if he could actually be the host that night, because I had to duck out and obviously mourn for my father. And Dimitri stepped up and said, you know what? Because Javen was like, well, I don't know how to do this stuff. And so Dimitri actually talked to me and he said, you know what? I'd be more than happy to do it. Go spend time with your family. Don't even worry about this. We'll take care of it. And so Dimitri with Javen, he co-hosted the entire broadcast for 2 hours. He did that for me 10 years ago. And I never forgot that and never will. That's what a great guy Dimitri Salita is.
Oh, yeah.
That says it all.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, I mean, yeah, he's, even with that, 10 years ago, like I said, he really, hasn't turned down, an interview with me unless if, he had like something where he really couldn't, do it or he had a prior engagement. But he's been, very cooperative, very forthcoming on a lot of things. So, he's definitely like you said, one of the great guys in the sport of boxing.
Yeah, he's true blue, man. You can always count on him, and he's such a smart guy, and he's such a good man.
Yep.
So anyone who aligns himself with Dimitri, they're in good hands.
Yep, for sure. And like you said, in our last conversation, like with him, being part of business, going into business, being a fighter, like that gives him, another set of eyes of how he's seen fighters, come up and just work the business to where he's able to benefit the fighters as much as he can and also get what he can, where he benefits. So all parties benefit,
Yep.
That's what he's been working on ever since he started Salita Promotions. So like I said, big ups to the Demetrius Salita on that, and big ups to Clarissa Shields for once again becoming the undisputed champion in the middleweight division. And we'll see what is next on slate for her and Savannah Marshall in the future. Now, I wanted to go into or transition into another event, but it will be that was over in Australia, the Rod Laver Arena in Australia. The headline out, undisputed lightweight champion rematch. Devin Haney, George Kambosos Jr. Man.
You know what, brother? Before you say anything, I have to just preface this by saying I was thoroughly impressed with Devin Haney's performance, and I was a little leery going into it because of how emaciated he looked at the weigh-in. My word, I thought it was going to be much more competitive of a fight, but Devin Haney really showed his class and created that separation. And at one point, credit to George Kambosos for being a tough piece of meat, but I really thought Devin Haney was going to knock him out in the last part of the fight.
That last part of stop him, or what's going to be like a referee or corner stoppage or something.
Yep.
But yeah, before the fight, man, I was looking at Devin Haney, and man, I'm telling you, he was looking like Michael Jackson in Thriller, man. Like,
my gosh, man, he's
like, how, bro, how?
Yeah,
I thought he could have just went on ahead and said he could have went the Shakur Stevenson route and just said, you know what, I'm coming in, a couple pounds over, man. I mean, I'm giving up the belt. He went in there and he made that 135. And he was still able to, get to the point where he was able to perform the way that he was could perform against George Kambosos.
But we'll put it this before this. If he had made the decision like Shakur Stevens did to just not make the weight and had to vacate all those belts, how much money do you think that would cost him as far as his immediate future fights? Going to a fight with Lomachenko or whoever else at 135, that would cost him a lot of money in order to give it those belts like that. So, and he's been on record before saying that it's not easy for me to make 135 as we see that. So I definitely applaud him for doing what you got to do, training himself, and getting down to the weight class, the weight limit, things like that. Like I said, to give it those belts, that would have been a bad decision as far as business-wise for me, in my eyes.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, he was able, but he was still able to make it. He was still able to perform at an optimal level. George Kambosos really didn't have any type of answer. It was a more clear decision win for Devin Haney in this particular case. So he stays as the undisputed champion at lightweight. Now, my question is, what will he end up doing for next year? A lot of people pretty much say, like, hey, could be Lomachenko next year. I have heard that it could have been Lomachenko next. Or, I mean, as far as like, instead of the rematch against George Kambosos, that it could have been Vasyl Lomachenko. But that didn't necessarily work out at that particular time. So we went ahead and had this rematch here against Kambosos. So he handled his business against Kambosos. Now, my thing is he going to, like you say, once again, try to go ahead and make 135 at least one more time for a defense of the undisputed lightweight championship? I think he still has an option there in the contract that he has with Top Rank while he was able to secure those two bouts, or at least two bouts that ended up being Kambosos and the Kambosos rematch. Now he has that option for one more fight. Now, will it be at 135, potentially against Vasyl Lomachenko, or does he say, hey, look, I mean, I just can't continue to try to make 135. I'll have my option. I'll take my option, but it'll be one bout at 140. And depending on what happens here in the next couple of months, then maybe that fight at 140 pounds could be against
Teofimo Lopez. Yep. That's a huge fight, huge money fight. Yeah. Regardless of no belts on the line, it doesn't matter. Yeah. That's a big ticket seller. That's a big money event. And in my opinion, that could very well be a bigger money fight than one with Vasyl Lomachenko at 135 pounds.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now, once again, we'll have to see how Teofimo Lopez, but if he scores a big hit like he usually does on Heisman Trophy evening, right? Mm-hmm. If he scores a big hit against Jose Pedraza on December 10th, right? This could set the table for a big fight at 140 pounds with Devin Haney. And hey, sign it up. I can't wait to see it.
Now here's the thing. On October 29th, we have Vasyl Lomachenko fighting, over in New York. Okay. And like I said, a couple months later, you're going to have Teofimo Lopez fighting in New York. Now, from a money perspective, financial perspective, we look at the numbers, we crunch the numbers. And for Vasyl Lomachenko, like, there may be some that think, hey, Vasyl Lomachenko is this type of guy that, I guess gets the interest of fans. I'm not all too sure about that. Whoa. When you have someone like a Teofimo Lopez, who, I know that he had, a fight over in Las Vegas, over at Resorts World Las Vegas for his last fight. But in this upcoming fight coming up in December at Madison Square Garden, if it's, Barboza or, whoever he has slated, if he has a good showing of fans out there for that particular fight and he scores a good, clean victory or a stoppage victory, that's going to have him be, really, really, really up there as far as like interest goes. And it would be a much better route for Top Rank, for Bob Arum, for Bruce Trampler, for Carl Moretti, for them to go the direction of having Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez. That is a bigger event for Top Rank than having Devin Haney against Vasily Lomachenko. And remember, we have somebody that's moving up to 135 pounds in Shakur Stevenson. So hey, why not have Shakur Stevenson and Vasily Lomachenko?
That's it. That's a great fight also. You know what? So, guys, I have to say this, man. 35 and 40. Yeah, that Top Rank is boy, has it made in the shade. They have it made in the shade, brother. Like, there's so many great matchups that they can put together at those weight divisions.
Yeah.
And
but what if Theo comes in December and gets a lackluster performance? What then? Now, I don't think
well, it's all going to depend on the performances of Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. Honestly, Jose Pedraza is such a crafty and wily veteran, and he's got the experience to give Teofimo Lopez some stylistic issues. But at 140 pounds, come on, guys, let's be honest. He can't crack an egg. That's not good when you're facing a guy like Teofimo Lopez. If you can't get his attention, good luck keeping him off of you.
Yep, that's right. That's right. I think, he, with his initial fight, he was, getting used to being around there at 140 pounds. But now, that he has some time, that he's more comfortable there at 140, his next bout, he's going to look to show up and show out there at Madison Square Garden after the Heisman Trophy presentation happens there. So
I will say this, though, brother. I will say this, though. Vasily Lomachenko, he's facing a guy who's very awkward, undefeated Jermaine Ortiz, guy who just put Jamil Herring into retirement. It's very difficult to look good against Jermaine Ortiz, right? Very crafty, very awkward, undefeated. But if Vasily Lomachenko puts him on his ass and knocks this guy out, you're going to create a huge demand for the Devin Haney fight. Ultimately, this decision is up to Devin Haney, Camp Haney, like Team Haney. It's entirely up to them. Can he make the weight any longer at 35? In my opinion, looking at him, and I know he says otherwise, but man, he looked god awful. It almost reminded me of Mike Alvarado and how emaciated he looked before the Ruslan Provodnikov fight.
Yeah.
That was abysmal. So we'll have to just wait and see. But in my opinion, brother, move up. It's time. And we all knew that it was imminent, and it was only a matter of time before he was forced to move up. I think the time is now.
Yeah.
Brother, don't kill yourself any further. It's not worth it. Especially when you're talking about facing a guy like Vasily Lomachenko. Don't do that to your career, brother.
Now, I mean, even back in 2019, like I was, covering Haney's first two fights in 2019. The Antonio Moran fight that was at MGM National Harbor, and then his fight against Zohar Abdullayev at the theater in Madison Square Garden. And after that fight against Abdullayev, you had the thing where he potentially could have fought Vasily Lomachenko at that point. But even after that fight, I was like, his frame makes it to where he should be at 140 pounds or at least north of 135. And I had asked him about that right after the Zohar Abdullayev fight, because like his frame really doesn't look like it could still like hold 135 pounds. And that was back in 2019. So now it's like 3 years later, and he was still trying to, still getting to that 135, and for him to like get it that one last time.
Well, let's be honest. And when we're talking about the business of things, and you're absolutely right, astute observation there, James, because he's been struggling since 2019 to make this weight. Okay. But let's be honest, in the business of boxing, is his market value the same when he's not a title holder?
Right. That's the thing.
Does he stand to make a lot more money when he's the lineal champion at 35? And they understand this. But is it safe for Devin Haney? This is good. That's why I'm saying this is entirely up to Team Haney. This is going to be a very big decision he has to make. So if Teofimo Lopez scores a big hit, creates a demand for Devin Haney, yeah, that probably is the safest course of action because that's still a big money fight.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's the thing. I'm like, Devin Haney's definitely going to have those options in 2023, and we'll have to see what happens. Like I said, at the end of this month, we'll see what happens, and then in December we'll see what happens, and we'll look like we'll have the most lucrative route for Devin Haney come 2023 to see what happens. But like I said, I think the more safer route or the more logical route would be to just be up there at 140 pounds and have that potential fight there against Teofimo Lopez,
Yeah, be that as it may, though, congratulations to Team Haney and Devin Haney. Boy, they put forth a real eye-opening performance in one where we saw a more aggressive George Kambosos. And, boy, he really shut him down. Aside from the second round, it was a virtual shutout. I think I only gave George Kambosos one round in that entire fight, and that was the second.
Well, Kambosos' strategy was to take as many right hands as he could. That was his strategy.
You know what? It sure looked that way, didn't it, Terrell? But you know what? And once again, this is a good segue into the Wilder fight, right? Mm-hmm. Because you saw both men, both opponents, right? And let's just say, look, Robert Helenius as well as George Kambosos, they were the opponents in this fight, right? You saw both opponents who were traditionally counterpunchers by trade,
right?
Try to force the action and become the effective aggressors. Look, unless you've been doing that for years, it's impossible to add that new wrinkle to your fight game in just one camp. And unless you can apply intelligent pressure, fight behind the high guard, you're going to receive a lot of incoming. And for both fighters, it spelt disaster.
Yeah.
Devin Haney, boy, he really tore up George Kambosos. I thought he was going to stop him late in the fight, sitting down on his shots. His face was a bloody mask.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was just bad. That was just bad.
Yeah, it was grotesque, brother.
Like y'all were continuing to allow George Kambosos to, I guess come out, round after round. But hey, I mean, more power to them. For me, for Kambosos, he got those two fights. He got the bag in those two fights. I guess he's, good getting the bag in those two fights because I don't know what else he's going to be doing afterwards,
Look, brother, let's just call it for what it is. Saturday night was George Kambosos Jr.'s retirement party.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
That was his golden parachute, brother.
Hey, listen, when he got that deal, that I guess the 2-fight deal or 1 fight, and then the option for the rematch with Devin Haney, he got paid that much money. He was like, the dude in the Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. I got a golden ticket. Man, he got paid for that, yo. But segueing into the card at the Barclays Center. Before I go into the the main event there, I wanted to just talk about those fights that were on the pay-per-view portion of the card. Going with that opening bout, Gary Antonio Russell.
Oh boy, look, James. He got his ass whooped, and once again, here it is. A counter puncher and he's from the DMV area, and I know that probably hurt your heart to see that, didn't it?
It did, but it did. But here is my thing. I did not expect for Gary Antonio Russell to get dominated the way that he got dominated.
Well, you should have. And hold on. Here's why, James. Here's why. And once again, going back to George Kambosos and Robert Helenius, when you take a counterpuncher by trade, and let's just be honest, all the Russells were taught to be counterpunchers, slick, badass counterpunchers, looking for those openings. But when you're the A side on the promotion, like Antonio Russell was, okay, when your opponent is waiting for you and he's looking to counter you effectively as well, like it's on you to try and force the action of the fight. Antonio unwisely took the bait, and he was eating like consistently all of those shots, those step back counters by Rodriguez. I mean, they were beautiful, man.
But it was not only that, it was that even from the first round, you saw Emmanuel Rodriguez be the sharper and faster fighter. Even when there were times that he was the aggressor, like even Antonio just couldn't really, he wasn't even ready for that.
No, and you could hear the frustration. You could hear the frustration from Gary Russell Jr. In the corner. You could hear his frustration from the opening bell to the final. Yeah, boy, it was ugly. Yeah. It was a one-sided contest. It was a massacre. But that's what happens when a counterpuncher by trade elects to take the lead. Look, unless you prepared for that for several camps, year after year, like look how long it took Canelo Alvarez to become an effective aggressor. Golden Boy and his management wisely kept him back at that absurd catch weight of 155 before sending him into the land of giants until he was able to become a more effective aggressor. Because let's face it, when you look at the Lotta fight, you look at the Mayweather fight, you look at even the Austin Trout fight, he had no idea how to be an effective aggressor. He couldn't cut off the ring. He couldn't close the distance. That took him years to develop that. You can't expect a guy like Gary Antonio Russell to develop that if you haven't worked on it in the gym. And that's what we saw on Saturday night.
But here's another thing, right? With Antonio Russell. Yeah, they had the first fight against Emmanuel Rodriguez, and the head clash in the round one, it was no contest, right?
Yep.
Now his next fight at the Park Theater in Las Vegas against Alejandro Santiago. That fight right there showed me that Antonio Russell, I can't put him at the level that Mr. Gary Russell Jr. was, and Gary Antoine Russell.
Yeah, he arguably lost that fight, brother.
There you go. Like he was getting beat to the punch. Like Santiago, he looked like he was the more effective puncher, and that type of stuff. And I was like, he just might lose this particular fight. But the judges just gave him the benefit of the doubt in that one. And so, he gets that win, and then they go ahead and they set this up, against Emmanuel Rodriguez because of the status or where he was placed in the rankings, Gary Antonio Russell. So it was more of like an eliminator bout where, he could have been on the verge of potentially fighting for a world title that, might end up being vacant after, Naoya Inoue.
Well, look. And when you go in, when you talk about the business of boxing, and if you're looking at from a promotional aspect, when you see a kid like Gary Antonio Russell that has a lot of promise, but you see him give 2 shaky performances like that consecutively, what are you going to do with him? He's not a ticket seller. You've got to then stick him in tough and say, "Hey, kid, sink or swim."
Yep.
If you expect us to invest any more money in you, we have to see that you're the goods. And so you have no choice. And there's a rule of thumb in promotions, right? Protect your ticket sellers. But if you're not a big ticket seller like Antonio isn't, you have no choice but to stick him in tough.
Yeah.
You have no choice. And they did that on Saturday night.
Well,
and
yes,
we just saw what happened.
Yeah. But now, with him having that loss, and it was an emphatic loss, you're really not going to see him like really compete in that bantamweight division for a good little while.
Yep.
And I had looked at what was going on in the rankings, and it's like he kind of got up to what was it, like around number 2 or so within within one of those rankings, like pretty quickly to me. So it was like, what else, or what other direction could he go outside of really like facing someone like Emmanuel Rodriguez? There really wasn't there many other options. So now, with him having this particular loss and it being this, like a big loss, like who would he end up facing? Like,
what I'll tell you what you do from a management and from a PR perspective, right? And I've done PR for so many fighters. What you do is, I'll tell you what you do. You move them up in weight and you blame it on the weight cut. You blame it on the weight cut and say, look, his legs weren't good from the get-go. He had to kill himself to make weight. You're going to see a completely different Gary Antonio Russell at 122. That's the only thing you can do to salvage his career at this point.
Yeah. Was that his
and then, you know what? And knowing Tom Brown and Al Heyman, that's exactly what you're going to see.
Was this his first loss?
Yes. But I tell you what, it not only was his first loss, this was on the biggest stage of boxing. This was on the opening bout of a pay-per-view.
Well, get this. And James, we've said this quite a few many times. One loss doesn't kill you. It's about how you lose. But and this loss that he experienced, that's a bad loss.
That's what I'm saying. Blame it on the weight cut. Blame it on the weight cut and move him up to 22 and say, you know what? That wasn't the best version of Antonio. He wasn't at his natural weight. He's at a much stronger weight. He killed himself to make weight. And that's what you do. But hey, gentlemen, I do have to duck out. But James, always a pleasure, brother. Thank you for being the gracious host. And Terrell, always enjoyed chopping it up with you, my friend. But James, keep doing what you do, man. You do a great job. Keep covering the sports. Keep writing. Keep doing all that you do, man. You do a tremendous job. So God bless all of you guys. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you, James.
All right. Thank you there, Joseph, for joining us here on the Boxing Source, as always. And we'll be looking forward to more from you there on the War Week Radio Network.
God bless you, brother. Thank you, my friend. Take care, Terrell.
Yeah, you too. You too.
All right, y'all. Joseph did make that suggestion for Gary Antonio Russell to, move up, in weight and go to super bantamweight. You probably could have more options for fights at the super bantamweight division. For me, in bantamweight, you really don't have that many options there within that, Tom Brown, Heyman, stable there in 122. Other than Ray Gaballo, I can't, or Laborio Solis maybe. Those are like the only two other fighters that I could think of that could be potential opponents for Gary Antonio Russell. But like, Joseph said, you had that type of a loss on an opening bout of a pay-per-view presentation. And for me, it's one thing, and I've kind of like had these conversations before. Like, what would be worse for you? Having a early emphatic knockout loss, or having almost like a clean sweep, being dominated from like round 1 to round 10 or round 1 to round 12. It's worse to be dominated from round 1 to round 12, because it just showed that you really did not belong in the ring with that opponent. And at that particular night, Antonio just did not belong in the ring against Emmanuel Rodriguez. It was just really, really bad for him. And
what wrong with that when he got hit and he got those wobbly legs? What round was that? You recall?
Now he got knocked. Remember, he got knocked down. Okay, he got knocked down in that particular thing. I think that was what, like round 8, and so you had a clash in round 9, and he only had 2 seconds in round 10. Pretty much like 2 seconds or so in round 10 before the fight was called for a technical decision win for Emmanuel Rodriguez. And, one judge had all of those rounds for Emmanuel Rodriguez. Another judge had 9 of the 10 rounds for Rodriguez. And, another one was 7 rounds to 3 for Rodriguez. So, like I said, I mean, from the beginning of the fight, it just seemed like Rodriguez just had the upper hand, regardless. And you just couldn't see any type of adjustments from Gary Antonio Russell until probably round 6 or round 7, maybe. But even with that, it still didn't throw off the, concentration of Emmanuel Rodriguez for him not to do what he was doing before. So, that was a bad look. Definitely a bad look there for Gary Antonio Russell there in that particular bout, man. So you did have that. Next bout that was on slate and pay-per-view, Frank Sanchez Foray, as I say, instead of Frank Sanchez, I call him by his entire government name. Frank Sanchez Foray against Carlos Negron. Sanchez coming in there undefeated. Negron with a record of 25 wins and 3 losses. Of course, he was notable for having a loss to Dominic Brazil way back in 2018, but also losing in 1 round to Brian Howard in 2019. So after that, he did have a string of wins there in the heavyweight division before they matched him up here against Frank Sanchez, who is a top-rated contender in the heavyweight division. Was part of the all heavyweight pay-per-view at one point there in with his fight and win against Efe Ajagba, where he pretty much had a pretty dominant performance against Efe Ajagba in that particular bout. But also had like a clean sweep win over Christian Hammer at the pay-per-view telecast on January 1st too. So there was that there against, but now against Carlos Negron, they're just seeing. I guess for me, I thought it was a filler fight of sorts because I really didn't think that there was much benefit of having Frank Sanchez face Carlos Negron. But before I continue on here, I wanted to add in another guest here checking in from Philly, the Philly link. Mr. YSM Sports Media in the building, Brother Jamil. What's going on?
Philly saved boxing yet again. Throwing it out there, Terrell.
Oh, man. Going into this thing here with Frank Sanchez and Carlos Negron, and, it was more about, it looked like Negron being, tougher than I guess, expected. But I think some people may have thought that Frank Sanchez would have blown right by Carlos Negron, but Negron was, being competitive for, a couple of those rounds there against Frank Sanchez. But then, we got hurt, significantly hurt up there in the 9th round. Then the referee Rick in and stopped it. So he does register a win, but like I said, I really don't think that it kind of really did much for Frank Sanchez in this case. I did see a number of heavyweights that were in attendance at the Barclays Center. So maybe he could go ahead and have a fight against one of those guys that were out there. But we're gonna see how that works itself out. But I just that particular fight, I guess they just threw it in there and just say, hey, let's just put Frank Sanchez in there, man, just to be straight up. I'm gonna be 100. I mean, hey, that's all it could be is be 100, and that was to me like a filler fight of sorts.
Yo, the funny thing is, it was supposed to be a filler fight, but it was actually really competitive fight.
Yeah,
Negron controlled distance, had a real good crisp jab, early on, Frank Sanchez was having a lot of problems to the point where we had question marks about Frank because of what Negron was able to do. People just figured that Sanchez was just dominating him. He didn't. So that was a really good card. It was a really good card. Very just underestimated. I saw dudes get sent to the Shadow Realm, and I saw competitive.
We're gonna talk about that. Yeah, we did see someone like a fighter get embarrassed. Before you jumped on, we talked about that with Gary Antonio Russell. But yeah, I kind of like found that interesting there that Negron was able to do that because I find it interesting that Effie Ajagba couldn't do that, but hey.
Yeah, the difference between the two is one was an Olympian.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get caught up in hype and promotion. Not saying that a dude that's not an Olympian can't be a really good boxer,
Right.
but Negron clearly had boxing skills that Jogba didn't have. Yeah, Jogba brings real raw power, but Negron was making Sanchez think in there.
Mm-hmm.
For the guy who's a Cape Verdean in the comments, look for Demetrius Andre to crossover. And by crossover, you should know what I mean.
Yeah. I just didn't talk about it with Demetrius at the time. But,
Oh, wait, when was the last time you spoke to him?
I only spoke to him briefly at Saturday night, but I didn't talk about that link.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the crossover is done.
Yeah.
It's done.
What's far as going to PBC or
you know the vibes, Terrell.
Yeah.
You know the vibes.
Yeah.
But when everybody got on him about the whole what is the dude's name? The dude he's supposed to fight for the
Zach Parker?
Yeah, for the Zach Parker situation. And he said that I have, bigger things lined up. He wasn't lying.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing because we all knew that he wasn't going to get much for the thing for if he was fighting Zanabek. So would have been more lucrative to fight Zach Parker at the time. And, due to circumstances, him having an injury, that fight couldn't happen at the time it was scheduled. So that's why things broke down when he really didn't have, the backing before. So that's why in the second first bid, it was significantly lower. So, but with that being said, like you said, he has much more lucrative things ahead on the horizon. So there's that.
AJ, real fast.
Yeah.
You know how they do business. One is like a tester. I'm not necessarily a tester, but something to knock off the rest. I expect Demetrius Andrade on pay-per-view mid to late 2023 for his first pay-per-view bout.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right. So they might have something set up for him before that, but we'll see. Going back to the thing there with Frank Sanchez. I don't know, man. That probably, may have said like, hey, maybe they need to halt things a little bit. I know that there's, one particular fighter that he might not end up facing because, they're, similar or whatever it is, same, country or whatever it is. So you're not going to see him and Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was in attendance there. You know what I'm saying? But you're not going to see Frank Sanchez in there against Luis Ortiz. You're not going to see him in there against Chris Arreola, who is in attendance. You might not see him in there against Washington, but you might see him in there against Charles Martin. But we'll see. I think we got to see.
The man that walks the earth as a god.
I walk the circle like a god. Yeah, hey, I mean, I was able to talk with him, chop it up with Charles Martin. I'm gonna see if if he could tell me a little bit more stuff what's going on with him later on down the line. But I think that would be a fight that would kind of like fit Frank Sanchez at this particular point because of the WBC situation that I'll talk about a little bit later. I think the best thing for Frank Sanchez is to have something like that, or maybe if Mr. Salita would probably see if they can go for it, is a fight against Otto Walling.
Question: who walks the earth like a god, Charles Martin or Charles Hill? Which one would you say? I'm sorry, I answered. Who would y'all say? Who would y'all say, man?
Oh boy, yo, hey, yo, hey.
Which Charles you choosing, Terrell?
I digress.
Oh man.
Honestly, though, you're right though. Otto Wally versus Frank Sanchez. See, we need to get these title eliminators going.
Yeah,
because there's a whole bunch of good matchups, but I feel like they're not for anything.
Moving, they're not making the moves to force these things. In multiple divisions, they ain't making the moves to force these things.
Facts.
Yeah, in the heavyweight division, there's like a good number of matchups that be like, yo, this could be fire if they would, go ahead and say, hey, make this the final eliminator, make this final eliminator and this one and whatever it is, so I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But Sanchez versus Charles Martin. I would like to see how that fight would turn out. So
if we're being honest, real fast, Tyson Fury is holding up the division.
He is. He definitely is.
Because you're giving Derek Chisora another crack at it when I'm not even saying, I'm a big Wilder guy. But you don't got to give Wilder a crack, but Joseph Parker, Herkovich. I'm sorry, not Joseph Parker, Joe Joyce, Herkovich. Frank Sanchez. There's like five dudes that deserve a crack. But you giving it to Derek Chisora again?
Who is wildly undeserved.
Otto Wally? There's dudes that deserve it again.
But Chisora is like at the bottom of the bottom of the like he didn't like convincingly win his bout, his last bout, so it's like I don't know. You could have fought Philip Hergovich. That would have been a better fight. Tyson Fury against Philip Hergovich or whatever it is. Even with the performance that Philip Hergovich had against Lei Zhang, I would have still preferred that fight over. Come on, man.
It's that Fury can even say why you really want to fight Chisora is to sell tickets for a fight back at home. That's it.
Yeah, but
outside fighting Joshua, who else would move the needle against Fury?
But here's the thing.
But Terrell, you telling me that Joe Joyce ain't selling more tickets than Chisora? You versus Joe Joyce, they got the same fucking promoter. So I feel you.
Yeah, Daniel Dubois, same promoter.
Exactly.
So
I kind of we would have to see on that if it ever happened. Joe Joyce has definitely made a good victory last week. His last fight against Parker, things like that. But Chisora, I think, still moves the needle more so than Joe Joyce and Dubois. I think at this point, still, even though his record's horrible, I think so.
Did Joe Joyce?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Joyce is on the
rise. Buy that pay-per-view.
You know that.
Listen, if they announce the fight, with Tyson Fury and Joe Joyce, that would blow up the UK. That would blow up the UK without question. So I would have thought that, they could have, made something like that. Like if you're like Tyson Fury, if you're not going to fight Alexander Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight championships, then have something that's, almost to that level or close to that level. Don't fight, the bottom of the barrel fighter that you could fight at that particular, ranking system. Do you have a voluntary defense? Yeah, you can have a voluntary defense. You've already had your mandatory defense against Dylan White. But come on. I mean, we got options here. You know what I'm saying? We got options. We got, you got, Otto Walling, like I said. You could have had Luis Ortiz in there if they didn't fight Ruiz. You could have Michael Hunter, or something like that. Or again, Otto Walling once again, Philip Hergovich, like I said. But Derek Chisora, a guy that has 15 losses that you fought twice already? Why? I don't understand it. All right. But back into the Fox Sports pay-per-view card that was at the Barclays Center. We're going to go into the co-feature bout that was on there. Former super middleweight champions going up against each other. Former IBF super middleweight champion Caleb Plant. Former two-time WBC super middleweight champion Anthony Durrell. They're clashing. They're super middleweight. One of the more anticipated bouts of the weekend. They were talking trash back and forth all across the board. We heard what, they were talking about conference call in the weigh-in and the press conference, all that type of stuff. And, this was about that, a number of people were waiting for. Now, the actual bout itself, for a good amount of rounds, it was we kind of seen, at least to me, we kind of seen what may have possibly been expected of sorts when it comes to the styles of these guys. In that you have someone like a good counterpuncher in Anthony Durrell, but you have a guy in Caleb Plant that is kind of effective with his shots, but he's not overly aggressive with his shots. So you did see a number of times where Caleb Plant was out there trying to, get his offense going or try to land shots. But he was out of range of Anthony Durrell. Anthony Durrell was still out of range, trying to get in or land in with a couple of, counter shots. But also from a position perspective, they were way off. And a number of times you've seen them both slip and fall, but with the lack of action for a majority of those rounds, you did, kind of hear the boo birds coming out a couple times, and so we thought it was going to be, something where the fight was gonna go full 12. And then you go into the 9th round, and then Caleb Plant comes up close and sits stationary, feet planted, goes with a left to the body, and then comes up with the left up top. Bam! Good night, Irene, whatever you could say. He was Anthony Durrell was done out. You could have counted to 20 or 25 or 30. He would have been out. And so Caleb Plant scores an emphatic knockout victory. I was shocked about that. We all know about his thing after the bout or after the knockout, where he kind of pretty much digs the dirt. You know how people say put him in the dirt.
Yeah, I don't know what was more disrespectful, either the knockout or that dig in the grave motion. It's so funny that the referee came and stopped him from doing that. It was in that. I mean, but once again, this is boxing. How many things have we seen that are disrespectful in boxing? Whether it be from
A number.
like Bernard Hopkins, y'all using that the throat cutting movement, stuff like that. I mean, this is boxing. It's a gritty sport. It is what it is.
But this kind of like reminded me of I think it was Teofimo Lopez against Magdaleno or whatever it was, where Teofimo Lopez scored the knockout. And of course, he does his customary backflip, but sometimes he does this thing where he knocks out the park. But at that particular time, he was like right by, I think it was Magdaleno, and he just said, blah, So this thing here with Plant was almost similar to that, where, that was almost like a lot of people like felt like when they saw that live, it was like, that was like, real disrespectful or whatever it is. And to be 100, some people were like thinking like, if he was doing that, where was Leon Lawson at when Caleb Plant was doing that? Of course, Leon Lawson, way back when Andre Durrell and Jose Uzcategui had that fight at the MGM National Harbor, where Uzcategui kind of like hit Durrell after the bell, and Durrell was hurt, and then Leon Lawson came in there and gave Uzcategui a 2-piece, and they were like, some of the people is like saying, where's Leon Lawson there in this particular instance? But nope, that it didn't happen. Caleb Plant, responds with the knockout victory here over Anthony Durrell in a WBC eliminator bout for the super middleweight division. And for me, with that being said, there's no other fight that's out there left for Caleb Plant at this particular point at super middleweight, but one fighter. And that is the one fighter that people have been waiting on for these two guys to clash at super middleweight for almost 3 years at least. And that is David Benavidez, right? And so we're going to see eventually if that fight happens. But we've just been hearing news about David Benavidez potentially having a fight in January against Jose Uzcategui, of all people. So if that fight gets finalized, then we'll see about what happens with Benavidez against Uzcategui. That fight could have happened, earlier, but Uzcategui had been tested positive for an illegal substance, so that got scrapped. So so it looks like they're trying to revisit that fight. Before I go into more into that, want to add in another guest on to the Boxing Source radio show here to, talk about, I guess more than the co-feature about.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How y'all doing tonight?
Oh, good. Echo.
Say it again.
Look like we got on this side.
Oh, echo?
Yep.
Okay. Let me mute and then try me in like a few seconds. Hold on.
All right. Yeah, I guess people having that, the earphones, earplugs, or whatever it is. I don't know what's going on.
Jay.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting on Mike, talk about the fact that Durrell supposedly said that he would never lose to a white boy, and this guy has also gone on social media from this point saying, "I've never said that. If anyone can put up the video, please tag me in it and you'll get 10K." Funny.
Yeah, and I've heard like a couple of people kind of like try to reach out to him in reference to that. To try and get that 10K. So I don't know how that.
He did say it?
Yo. So
he did say it?
Yeah, he did say it. He said it on Instagram. He gave props, to Caleb Plant for scoring a victory and everything like that. And then also afterwards, he said that he never said that he'd never lose to a white boy. And he said if anybody could find the clip where I've said that, go ahead and post it and tag me, and I'll give you $10,000.
Well, I'm saying, did he say that in the clip?
I've seen something where it was him saying something like that in a clip. Yes.
Oh, okay. Hey, send it to me so I can give me $10,000. I mean, I can use 10,000 personally speaking.
I think it might be a little bit too late for that. I think people have reached out to him already in reference to that. I mean, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know who ended up being the winner of $10,000 in this particular case, but yeah, I mean, hey, you know, that's how things kind of like shake. You know, for Anthony Durrell, uh, like I said, it was an emphatic knockout loss. Um, you know, we had his loss to David Benavidez, you know, a while back, you know, for at the time WBC belt. He did have the fight against Kyron Davis, you know, last year, where you know we didn't really have a great performance of sorts, and that some people thought that he lost that fight, and it ended up being a draw. But he still was able to, you know, have a fight on that Canelo versus Plant, November of last year, where he did score a knockout victory. But you know, Plant was saying like, "Hey, he scored a knockout victory against a guy that was, you know, coming up from 154 pounds or whatnot." So, like, Plant really didn't like kind of give Anthony Durrell that much props, you know, going into the bout. And like I said, there was a whole lot of jawing back and forth, and Plant was like saying, like, "Hey, I mean, I don't, you know why, you know, you have all of this hate, you know, towards me." But you know, he had like it looked like he had a message in there, because you know, I guess before the bout he had on a shirt that said like something like to the extent of "I don't know why you hate me," or "I don't know the reason why you hate me." And then he scores that knockout, and they give him another shirt, and he puts it on, and it says, "But now you do." And I was like, "Oh man, ooh boy, ooh boy." But yeah, but given the result of this fight, given what Caleb Plant was doing in camp, you know, of course, you know, having his, you know, have his dad next to him, but also having Stephen Breadman Edwards on here, you know, for the first time in his camp. And after the fight, you know, Breadman, they were talking about, hey, you know, this is the first, you know, when they were starting up camp, he was like, yo, you know, you're sitting down on your shots and you're throwing shots while you're sitting down on them. And he's like, yo, Caleb, you really have some pop behind that punch. You should just continue to work on, just sitting down on your shots and just focusing on that. And so that kind of like was a key in what he was able to do in order to score the knockout victory over Anthony Durrell there, you know. And kind of like did mention also with Caleb Plant, he was trying to give Anthony Durrell some different looks, given that Anthony Durrell is a counterpuncher, that he wanted to set him up with feints, you know, try not to be that predictable against Anthony Durrell, you know, going through those rounds. And so maybe, you know, that was another element to Caleb Plant's game that, you know, he was able to, add during the course of this bout. But, you know, given that Durrell is a counterpuncher, very experienced, had like a good, you know, eye for the range and the foot placement of Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant wasn't, you know, I would say as successful as maybe may have thought up to that point, but when he was there at mid range, he was able to score, like I said, that double left to in the fight emphatically, you know. So, hey, Caleb Plant, you know, responds with his bout, his loss to Canelo Alvarez with this knockout win, and I'm looking for Caleb Plant, David Benavidez, hopefully sometime in the middle of next year after David Benavidez looks like he's having that fight against Jose Euskadagui in January. So I'm just waiting for that particular bout. That's probably the biggest fight to make at this particular point there at the super middleweight division. If Canelo Alvarez is going to hold up the rest of those belts and potentially face Dimitri Bivol once again at light heavyweight. So why not have, you know, the two top rated super middleweights out there left. So why not have that?
Who's category who got beat by Caleb Plant?
Yes, who's category that got beat by Caleb Plant?
Yeah, that's basically a statement for Benavidez. At this point, we already know no one else really wants to fight him. Charlo won't move up to fight him, things like that. Like I said, Canelo, he's holding on to belts at 168. He's not going to fight David Benavidez no time soon.
Mm-hmm.
So who else is there for Benavidez to fight?
Right, and it's like the other thing too, and this goes through a conversation that I had with Benavidez's promoter Samson Lukowicz weeks ago. Is that there was one other bout that was potentially that was proposed was David Benavidez against Jesse Hart, and there's two things with that. One, who knows if the network would have been able to accept that fight, and two, what Samson Lukowicz was saying was that Jesse Hart's team wasn't down with the money that was offered for that particular fight, so that bout was just dead in the water or whatnot. So that was out. So there's only a couple other limited choices out there for David Benavidez, especially when at the top of the division you have like David Morrell that's defending the regular version of the WBA belt, against Eidos Barsanuli. So that fight's coming up there over in Minnesota. So super middleweight. To me, super middleweight really isn't that deep when it comes to potential matchups. It's not like 154. It's not like 147. It's almost the same level as like 160, when it comes to potential matchups. So with that being said, David Benavidez, as long as he, stays there at 168, there isn't really any options at 175 either. That many options for 175 either, it looks like. So for Benavidez to, I guess, end up having a fight there against Jose Category, I mean, that's going to be what it is until we, I guess, get that fight, Benavidez versus Caleb Plant, later in 2023. Now we go to the main event at the Barclays Center, the return of the WBC, former WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Deontay Wilder, in the ring, going up against Robert Helenius. It was something that, a number of people were waiting on. And, for me, I think it was more about the experience of seeing Wilder coming back to the ring, and also seeing the number of the fans of Deontay Wilder being in attendance, or at least a lot of them that I do know about, that were in attendance for this fight. I expected nothing but a Wilder knockout against Robert Helenius. I didn't think it was going to get anywhere past 4 rounds. And like Joseph Heron said earlier in this podcast, that you have someone in Robert Helenius who really works off of counterpunches, trying to be an aggressor, when Deontay Wilder really, like, for the majority of his career, he mostly just stays stationary, but also he's also to a certain level a counterpuncher himself. And so when you try to initiate the action and you're not used to it, you're going to get caught in positions that, you're not used to, you haven't worked on for an extended period of time. You're there, over in the New York area for an extended period of time, like Robert Helenius was, and being in camp. But is it something where you're kind of like working on that? No. And if you're not used to that, then what can you really do? So he was coming forward, for that initial time, trying to see if he could land a couple shots. He was able to do that. But for me, Robert Helenius is more of a guy that, like I said, one, kind of catches you off guard, and two, really, I don't think he really sits down on his shots a lot. He's more of an arm puncher type of thing, to where he has to catch you off guard to really hurt you. So with that being said, for me, it was more of like whenever Wilder, releases a right hand or whatever it is, that's when everything's gonna be over. And Wilder just pretty much caught him almost similar to how he caught Arthur Spilka. Didn't really get like the full extension of the punch, but he was still able to catch him with a counter that really just shook Robert Helenius and put Robert Helenius down there and out in the first round. So Deontay Wilder scores a first round knockout victory over Robert Helenius. Gets back in the win column. There was a WBC heavyweight eliminator. So we'll have to see what is next in reference to Deontay Wilder. Now, speaking with a couple of people, there are two potential bouts that could be on the table for Deontay Wilder. One, of course, is Andy Ruiz Jr., who was involved in a earlier eliminator bout for the WBC against Luis Ortiz and was able to score the win over Luis Ortiz. The other bout, and the one that a number of people are really interested in, is Deontay Wilder against the unified heavyweight champion of the world, Alexander Usyk. Now, the thing with Usyk is, Usyk was like, hey, give me some time. I'll go ahead and I'll face Tyson Fury for undisputed. Tyson Fury was like, hey, man, I'm trying to get back in there. I'm trying to get in the gear, get back in December. You ready in December? Usyk's like, nah. So that's why you ended up having Fury going up against Derek Chisora of all people. Okay. So now it's more about, okay, what's going to happen in 2023? Will Tyson Fury be on his antics? And if he's on his antics, Alexander Usyk is not going to be for all the games. He will go ahead and he'll go ahead and face Deontay Wilder. And people are really interested in seeing about making a fight with Alexander Usyk and Deontay Wilder in Las Vegas. And they would have the money for it. And they'll be able to just say, hey, we'll have Usyk versus Wilder, unified heavyweight championships in Las Vegas. Why not? We can make it happen. If Alex Krasniuk is interested in it, if Alexander Usyk is interested in it, then hey, we'll just go for it. But it just remains to be seen how that's going to work out. But to me, those are the two potential matchups there for Deontay Wilder next in 2023. So I'll just have y'all thoughts on it before I go into a couple of things that Deontay Wilder said in the post-fight presser. So Terrell, what was your reaction to that first round knockout by Deontay Wilder?
Well, yeah, just going into the lead up for this fight, the thing about it, Wilder and Helenius are familiar with each other. And when I say that means Helenius has been in Wilder's camp as a sparring partner multiple times. So in that regard, that takes away what I guess both fighters are familiar with each other as far as style, power, styles, things like that. So a lot of times when you come into a fight, you've never seen this guy before. Of course, most people you've never been in camp with them before. So, but because these guys are in essence friends, as Wilder has described, they're already familiar with each other. So in that regard, there's no need to hold back and things like that. And 2 years to me, we saw Wilder come in at 214.
Yeah.
So back down to what he used to be. Back down to what we accustomed to seeing as far as weight wise, and we kind of saw it in the first round. He definitely bounced around, boxed. I don't want to say boxed. He just moved. He's had a lot of lateral movement in that regard. So that was good to see for that, right? But I mean, it's not a whole lot to talk about in towards the fight. Wilder did not actually throw a lot of punches, but just to the knockout, right to it, like you already said, Jay, it was not even a full extension. Not even a full extension on that right hand, and it just destroyed Helenius. So I don't know if that's just a weak hand or Wilder's power is true like that. And I tend to think the latter. Wilder definitely, we know he definitely has power. And even just besides this bout, we've always been critical of Wilder on the show. Lack of a jab, lack of opponents, people that he's fought, things like that. At this point now, I project Wilder to have a better second half of his career going forward. At this point, with all that he's been through with Fury and just all the outside forces of boxing, I think he'd have a better career. And I'm sure, I hope, just like he hopes, that the Fury bout, I'm sorry, not Fury, but the Usyk bout can actually happen. I would have liked to see Fury, I'm sorry, Usyk. They're at Barclays Center. That didn't happen. No big deal. But you can go from losing your belt, come back in, you have a good victory, and then fight for the unified belts just like that, all within the course of 1 year. That's a great opportunity. So if it happens, I'll be glad to see it happen for him.
Yeah, and I just thought about this too here with Usyk. And people are talking about the games with Tyson Fury and the talk about him potentially facing Anthony Joshua, and talking about but Anthony Joshua wouldn't be ready or didn't want to sign anything when a fight of that magnitude takes a lot of intangibles, a lot of specifics. A lot of details have to be ironed out for a fight of that magnitude to be made. It's not as easy as making a fight between Fury and Usyk than making a fight between Fury and Anthony Joshua. So that fight couldn't really materialize that fast. So Usyk, makes that request of like saying, hey, wait a little bit. He had been, a little bit injured, had been hurt a bit after his second fight against Anthony Joshua. So he's like, hey, if you give me until like January, February, or something like that, then I'll be ready to go. Fury says no. He says that, hey, I'm fighting in December, and if you're not fighting, oh well. Okay, cool. If Fury wants to fight in December, that's fine. But it would be something, or a big little screw you to Tyson Fury, if Alexander Usyk goes ahead and faces Deontay Wilder next. Because then, after Fury has his bout against Derek Chisora in December, or whatever it is, if Usyk goes ahead and faces Wilder, then what does Tyson Fury do? What do you have? Are you going to try to revisit a fight against Anthony Joshua? I don't know. That means you might have an option of either fighting Joe Joyce or Daniel Dubois or something like that. You can't really face any other fighter, because outside of that, he's gonna be coming up to the point where that mandatory thing is going to come up. And if Wilder's going to be facing Usyk for those unified titles, then Fury might end up facing another highly rated fighter there in the WBC rankings. And it's not going to be, someone like a Makhmudov. They're not going to be looking for something like that. They're going to be looking for Tyson Fury to have a big bout. Like he didn't have the resume of an Anthony Joshua. He has his fight, with Vladimir Klitschko. He had his 3 fights with Deontay Wilder. He's had the 1 fight with Dylan White. Okay, cool. But outside of that, what do you have to show for in the heavyweight division? People are going to demand Tyson Fury to have big fights, because from a overall popularity perspective, right now, he's not a big fighter. He's not. You have Anthony Joshua, you have Deontay Wilder, and that's it. Tyson Fury could be the top-rated guy in the heavyweight division, but he don't put butts in the seats like that. No. And we're going to see if he really can or not by facing someone like a Derek Chisora. Like, if you're that popular, even though it's like the 3rd fight, why are you choosing Derek Chisora? But you know what, though? What we're going to do is we're going to revisit this fight between Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius. And the reason why is because we got another guest here on the show that was live at the Barclays Center to watch Deontay Wilder knock out Robert Helenius in the first round. And he said, ooh, we back. That's right. It is the president of the Deontay Wilder fan club. MVO is in the building. What's going on?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? How you doing today, JR?
I was expecting something bigger and better than that, man. It's like, we back! Yeah! We back!
As much as I would love to be excited about Deontay Wilder being back, I'm more disappointed that Ukrainian ball juggling unified champion who was mentioning the name of Deontay Wilder and said he was going to show up at the Barclays Center to call out Deontay Wilder. I'm disappointed Alexander Usyk was not a man of his word and showed up at the Barclays Center.
You had all those heavyweights there, number of heavyweights that Deontay Wilder defeated.
And they were all in
awe. They all were in attendance, but the heavyweight of interest wasn't in attendance, I guess.
He's scared, JR. Admit it. He's scared. This man said, I would rather face Putin than face Deontay Wilder.
Nah. Nah. I was just saying, like, listen, it would be great to have Alexander Usyk face Deontay Wilder and give a big screw you to Tyson Fury for trying to think that he runs the heavyweight division. Like, he thinks that he could choose who to fight and when to fight whenever he pleases and try to make demands towards Alexander Usyk. So for him to like say, oh, Usyk, yo, December, what's up? Let's do it, December. Usyk was like, nah, I ain't ready. I ain't ready for December. Just have it later. If you have it later, I ain't got no problems. But if Fury's like, no, December was it concrete? Let's throw it back to him. Let's say after that fight that he has in December, oh, okay, Fury's ready. Usyk's like, no, I ain't gonna fight you. I'm going to fight Deontay Wilder. That would be a big screw you to Tyson Fury. And it gives Deontay Wilder a shot to become your unified heavyweight champion of the world. Why not? Las Vegas, Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk, unified belts. Hey.
Jay, I got a question.
All right.
How the FUCK Matt get to come in and give his opinion on Deontay Wilder before I give my opinion?
Oh, I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer. Okay.
Go ahead.
Ready? Here we go. Because due to seniority, he is the president of the Deontay Wilder fan club.
You said you took his credentials away. You gave it back to him?
Yes. You forgot.
When?
After he done left the Bronx to not go, he didn't go anywhere in his life outside of the Bronx, but he left the Bronx to go to Alabama to see the Deontay Wilder statue. That's how he became reinstated as the president of the Deontay Wilder fan club.
You mean when he was tardy to see you mean when he was tardy? That's what you're talking about?
Yo, you sound jealous.
I am not jealous, okay?
I would like to point out that Deontay Wilder said it was me. He said it was me why he came back to boxing. Just so you know.
Remember,
Because he saw your picture?
he was
That's fair.
85% out and 15% in. But when he saw the picture of the MVO's arm around the Deontay Wilder statue, that did it. He's like, no, I'm all the way in. I'm in, baby.
I mean, I can't argue with that. You know what? I apologize, Matt.
You know,
I'll let the hate.
Not on Twitter, you would have gotten a chance to talk to Deontay Wilder live on our Twitter space last week.
Who did what now?
You would have gotten a chance to talk to Deontay Wilder on our Twitter space last week.
Yeah.
Why you ain't tell me to join?
Because you're not on Twitter.
I am on Twitter.
Oh,
Man, I done been to some of y'all little boxing shindigs. Y'all be talking about everything other than boxing. I be hearing football talk. I'm like, wait a second. Is this the right hangout?
Deontay Wilder joined us last week.
yep.
Dang, Mac, you could have told me that, man.
Oh, man.
How was it? Tell me about it.
It was excellent. We stayed for like a whole hour.
Yeah.
People just asking questions, or what y'all talking about?
Yeah. They were asking me questions. Shout out to brother Ken Buhari. Shout out to Tay Jones for making that possible. So he was able to jump on there for an hour and chop it up with his fans. So
Who platform did he come on?
Lefty.
Oh, okay, that's what's up.
Yeah. So yeah, he was able to do that. The night before, the day before the fight and whatnot. So it was a good little thing there for him. And
he got on after the weigh-in.
Yeah, after the weigh-in and stuff like that. And like I said, he was able to score that first round knockout victory.
I do have a serious comment though.
Yeah. But we gotta we gotta get it in, man. Vice President of the Deontay Wilder fan club, your thoughts on Deontay Wilder's first round knockout win over Robert Helenius.
Don't try to salt shake me now. Don't try to butter me up now. But yes, I hear people giving Alexander Usyk all of this credit to say that he'll show Tyson Fury by fighting Deontay Wilder. What really is his incentive for actually taking this fight other than everything to lose? Like, I hear people talking all of that, but I don't think it's you're putting him on a pedestal in a sense. Sort of like what's it called when you have like Achilles, where you sort of not immortalized, but you're raising somebody up higher than what they probably actually is. I don't believe he's gonna fight Deontay Wilder until they in the ring. Cause what does he stand to gain? He has everything to lose though.
A lot of money.
Okay, he stands to gain a lot of money, but is that worth what he saw in round one of last fight? Is that worth what he saw Tyson Fury go through 3 times?
Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is, but he really doesn't care.
He's scared.
The opponent.
I hear you say he don't care. I don't believe it. I think the man is like,
scared.
I think he's scared. Wouldn't you be scared?
Why he didn't show up, JR?
Why he ain't show up, JR?
You're gonna have to ask Alex Krasniuk on why he didn't show up.
Scared.
Come on. Oh man.
He will never fight Deontay Wilder.
So you're saying that Deontay Wilder is going to fight Andy Ruiz next? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
I kind of hope he don't.
So
he's gonna fight Anthony Joshua next.
I would rather him fight Anthony Joshua. What does Andy Ruiz give him? I had a questionable thought about that graphic that they showed when they were like, here are the players in the heavyweight division. And then they show Andy Ruiz as the ex-unified champion. They show Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and they show Usyk. Yeah, Andy Ruiz, yes, his name is immortalized because he beat Anthony Joshua, but his stature is nowhere near Anthony Joshua, though.
But of course, we know it's a lot easier for them to make a fight with Andy Ruiz than to make a fight with Anthony Joshua. But we all know the most lucrative fight to make in the heavyweight division is Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. One thing that I found interesting, though, is that Mr. JD's, of course, is there with Deontay Wilder. And, that Shelly Finkel is there with Deontay Wilder. And Shelly Finkel was saying that, hey, he said, hey, we're going to wait and see what Eddie Hearn says about an offer or a deal for a fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. I think that, there shouldn't be any type of offer coming from either side. There has to be something worked out to where we all know that is the biggest fight in the heavyweight division. They don't need belts. They don't have belts right now. But if they had a matchup or potentially said that they're potentially going to fight, that's going to take off all the attention for the heavyweight division. So without question, that is the biggest fight in the heavyweight division.
Everything 50-50. Deal done.
Deal done. Let's go for that. Everything 50-50. Let's go. Just do that. And MVO, here's something, right? So when they were talking about this potential, whatever it was, between Joshua and Fury, right? Didn't Anthony Joshua say to a certain extent that he would have been okay if they had some type of a quote unquote split where he got 40% of the pot?
He did say that.
So, yeah, I would say that there shouldn't be much of an issue about a 50-50 split with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. And you know what? We should have Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua in Las Vegas. 50-50 split. MGM Grand Garden Arena. You want to make the money? You can make the money. You can set the price for the tickets. You can set the price for the concessions, sponsorships, whatever. 50-50 split. Joshua versus Wilder, MGM Grand Garden Arena 2023. Why not? So let's have
it in March.
No. I'm not stopping anything and everything I'm doing on March for if they have that fight there, then everything stops. I'm going. Okay. They make that fight for March, I'm going. But we'll see how whatever works out with that. I don't think it's going to happen in March though. I think we're going to have Joshua fights somebody first, then we're gonna go into that. So there's that. Also, after the bout, you had the post-fight presser with Deontay Wilder, and a lot of people were talking about, what Deontay Wilder was saying after the bout, and he's kind of like goes back into what I was saying in reference to him, before him saying he was coming back, that he was 85%, out, 15% in, because he was like talking about the business and how shady the business of boxing could be, and he also talked about, how all of these fighters, risk their lives out there, and that, you can't be calling these fighters bums, because like at any given second, especially in the heavyweight division, not only your career could end, but your life could be altered, changed, or whatever it is, and he talked about, and he also talked about, how a lot of these fighters, pretty much get forgotten about, once it's all said and done,
Yep.
and he also brought up the instance of Pritchard Cologne, who had what happened to him, over in down the street or whatever it is from where my area is, over by George Mason, or in Fairfax, where he pretty much his career was ended, and he was pretty much like rendered immobile, for the rest of his life. And so
his
now
life is basically over.
Yeah, his life is over, basically, and he's had his parents like take care of him ever since then, and for someone like Deontay Wilder, and the thing about it is, a lot of people don't really, how could I say this, right? A lot of people don't really know how humble Deontay Wilder is. So when he speaks about stuff like that, that is Deontay Wilder, right? And we kind of like talked about it leading up to this fight, is that, and he kind of like said this, like he's the same person now as he was when he was coming up in the ranks in boxing. Same person. Like you said, like humble, caring, wants to, is interested in what's going on. Doesn't matter if he's known you for years or if he's known you for 10 minutes, he'll have an interest in you. And so when he talks about like these other fighters, when he talks about, former opponents that he's had, like that is him, So when he talked about the thing there with Pritchard Cologne, for me, I kind of like thought about it like, yo, if you really think about it, given what happened in that third fight, that could have been him, And so it's like, yeah, he gives it his all in every one of his fights. So he tries to give it his all in one of his fights, but he's also aware that like he tries to do, and he said this, he does what he does just to make sure that like, yo, if it's gonna end, it's gonna end emphatically. It's not going to be something where, people have it could be a shot that people could get really seriously hurt or be hurt long term, because it's like once this thing is all said and done, if you're not set up like Deontay Wilder is, you really ain't got nothing after it's all done, And a lot of these, and you said a lot of these fighters, this is their shot to support their families. So once it's done, that's it. They don't have no other option. So that's what he was talking about in that post-fight press conference. And he like I said, he cares about a lot of people, and he sees the situation from a lot of fighters and how things can end up. And it really hurts him. So I don't think a number of people really understand that about Deontay Wilder. And that's the thing, when you approach him and you talk to him, that is how he is, no matter who it is. When I seen him talk with Chris Arreola, when I seen him talk with Gerald Washington, when I seen him talk with like a Luis Ortiz, when I seen him talk with, who is it? Ray Flores. or when he talks to me, you know what I'm saying? He has that same type of demeanor, like a caring demeanor. And so inside the ring, he could be, a fearsome, one of the most, powerful punches in boxing. But outside the ring, no, he's not like that. So that's the thing with Wilder there. And I think that's partially why MVO loves Deontay Wilder so much. And like I said in Twitter, that he wished that he was Malik Scott holding Deontay Wilder up in the air after that knockout win against Robert Helenius. So, yeah, that's my piece on it. MVO, you got something to follow up with that?
No, I think you said it perfectly. What is more than say? That Deontay Wilder punch, though, come on. That was like a Bruce Lee 1-inch punch that he hit him with, man. Yo, that man hit him with a Bruce Lee punch. That was, oh my God, that was great. I don't know, man. I was just humbled at what I saw. I'm happy Mike wasn't there because he would have ruined the moment. I'm just glad.
How would Mike have ruined the moment?
Because you're not a real fan.
But hey,
so let's get this right. Let's get this right here, Matt. I've been to 5 Deontay Wilder fights.
But you ain't been to the last one.
I've been to 5 Deontay Wilder fights.
What Janet Jackson said? What have you done for me lately?
I've been to 5 Deontay Wilder fights.
Oh my God.
You ain't been to no Wilder fights once the ticket prices started going up.
I've been to 5 Deontay Wilder fights.
You ain't been to the last one.
He said yesterday's price is not today's price.
Did you go see the statue yet?
I've been to 5 Deontay Wilder fights. Man, I don't have to goddamn hug the nuts of a goddamn statue to show I'm a fan.
You live right there, Mike.
I'm a fan because I'm a fan.
If I lived as close as you did to the statue, I would visit it every day.
Man. Yeah, that's like a stalkerish fan. I'm like a real fan. I'm like,
And I would like rub oil on it every day just to make sure it's shining. Some like jewelry cleaner, bronze cleaner.
Oh boy.
Make sure the statue's all polished.
Man, I got a question for you.
What up?
Do you think that Wilder could have a better second half of his career at this point now?
Yes.
Considering back at
Yes.
back at a lighter weight, and given the perspective of his experiences with the losses, things like that, the Fury trilogy, things like that.
First of all, those wasn't losses. Don't listen. Those were long counts and crab in the bucket referees. Okay. Now, what's going to carry Wilder in the second half of his career is that he has the best trainer in boxing. And that is Mr. OnlyFans himself, Malik Scott.
Yeah, I think that he's been given a lot of more perspective, time off, time to recover mentally and physically, things like that. Just a time to sit back and look at and take everything in and evaluate what's been going on with himself and become a better fighter, a better thinking in the ring. And I think that the lighter weight will benefit him as well, back to where he used to be at.
Now, one of the things
my question is, will he get the opportunities to have a better second half of his career? Because it looks like that Ukrainian guy is running very far away from him. So will he be given the opportunities?
Like I said, I'll see if we can get in contact with Alex Krasniuk or Igis.
Yeah, I'm about to go harass Usyk on Twitter right now, actually.
You might have to go on Instagram. I think he's on Instagram a little bit more than he's on Twitter. So that might be the option.
What's his wife's Instagram? I'm gonna go harass her.
Oh no. Oh gosh, don't do that. But on the thing there with Malik Scott, of course, you had that classic line by MVO a while back that I'm not going to repeat. But I did, mention to Deontay Wilder on a couple of occasions there that it seems like a stark difference in when he's in camp with Malik Scott, and also his other members of his camp, and that it's not like work; it's like having fun when he's there with Malik Scott. Does Malik Scott, say that there are a couple of things that Deontay Wilder still has to work on? Yes, but the level of familiarity, level of camaraderie that he has with Malik Scott, level of camaraderie that he has with other members of his team, that makes it to where, like I said, it doesn't feel like work. If it doesn't feel like work, then you're comfortable, with doing whatever you're doing. So it just seems like clockwork. Doesn't seem like it takes much effort. Is it very effective? Yeah, but it doesn't seem like it takes much effort. So with that being said, I think that he'll be able to, kind of like be more comfortable in camp. And I think that, one of those things was having him show up for this particular fight at 214 pounds in a more, weight area that he's more comfortable in, so that kind of like is a key factor for Deontay Wilder in his future fights, that he stays around that particular weight and that he works a little bit more on the advantages that he does have, being 6'7" plus, going up against a number of the opponents there at the heavyweight division that are not around that. So there's that.
Yeah, I think that you can tell that they are working on situational stuff with Deontay Wilder.
Yeah,
he's going, and I mean it's needed. He's going to some basics, back to the basics, and just making sure that he's comfortable doing certain things. Deontay Wilder, one can see that he like he got long feet and sort of he ain't the most graceful person in the world, but what I can see is that him moving around the ring in that last fight, he looks better than what he normally did in moving. And so if that trajectory keeps up where they are improving, helping him feel more comfortable, even with him sort of like using that rope and leaning against the rope sort of and practicing that sort of viper-like comeback. And then if you notice, he leaned on the rope to get back, and then he supported himself in the rope, kept his balance, countered, and then he put his arm up looking for a counter, and then he dipped his head as well too. So I mean, that's the stuff that you got to teach him, and he's looking like he's going through the motions. So if he fight on his back foot and he can do well on that, because obviously that's the game plan that people are going to try to go at him, is to make him do that. And so if you got somebody not named Tyson Fury that is following you and you can counter, he going to have a lot of success. And even just working to it to where if he did want to take the fight with Tyson Fury again, the game plan that they would have to do, which the game plan would include obviously having win to go 12 rounds.
Yeah, but with him being down at 215, he won't really have to worry about that as far as like his endurance is concerned. So it would pretty much be similar to like their first fight when they went 12. So it would kind of like be like that. Like him fighting off his back foot, that is to his advantage against guys like a Robert Helenius, or like he was able to do against Archer Spilka when he finished him pretty much the same way. And so he could just add that as another element to his game. So we're going to see, what happens in his next fight or his next couple of fights on how he's able to add more elements to his game to become more of a complete fighter.
Didn't he throw so they said he landed 3 punches. Comfy box or whatever it is, man. I just don't know about that because he definitely landed a body shot earlier in the round. I saw him land a body shot. Unless that's one of the 3 that he landed. I'm gonna go back and watch it because it wasn't that long. But I saw him land a nice clean body shot.
Yeah, but don't forget about that back foot punch. He didn't just do that out of nowhere. He also did that in the third Fury fight in the later rounds where he was backed into a corner and punched Fury with an uppercut off the back foot that kind of stumbled Fury late in the fight. So he's been working on that with Malik Scott a lot.
Yeah. He had that. Of course, like the punch to the body, jabs to the body, he's also done. And he's always had that, also counter hook too. He's also had that. Also had that element to his game before he even had, Malik Scott as his set trainer too. So
and the hook looked better though, right? The hook looks better. It's less trajectory. It was a shorter hook. Now, what I will say, that right hand was a little interesting that he threw out there. He threw behind the hook, but that left hook that he threw was a short hook, and it was fast. It was faster than what he normally threw it too.
Yeah,
it was like a whip.
Yeah, if he's able to sharpen up, those type of things, then yeah. But I think that's more about him, being more, what I would say, more confident in him setting down on his shots. So if he's able to do that, and I think Malik Scott is teaching him to be more setting his shots, then yeah, he'll be able to just keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that, so that when he is actually in the ring, that is more fluid, and he won't have to worry about just saying he has to think about, this is what I have to do. No, it's gonna just come to him. Just be there, set a shot, and boom, left hook. So he'll have that in his game. You know what I mean? But I mean that's something that we will wait and see to find out what happens here. What's next with Deontay Wilder there? But that how he is in reference to the heavyweight division. And yeah, like he said, he's back. He said, he's the man of the heavyweight division and whatnot. And yeah, I do know that, he had his little thing there, heartfelt, expression about, the business and how, the game pretty much get chew a lot of folks up and spit them out. But MVO, you know what? He could have been for 2 years, brother, 2 years, I held my head high. I did my thing for the kids. I did my thing for the charities, and the reception I got, well, you fans could stick it, brother. No, you couldn't do that. But we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what's going to be next for him. Like I said, either Alexander Usyk or Andy Ruiz Jr. We'll see about what Alex Krasnick says on that. But given that this has been a full show here for this Monday night. Thanks to everyone here for being part of the Boxing Radio Show. We'll get right back at it. Hopefully on the 23rd. Like I said, live on YouTube, available on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, whatever it is. And like I said, at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is hit and I can hit, not to stand a trade. On that note, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody. And one more thing. I don't know.
Bomb Squad!
Yeah, that's it. I'm out. Deuces.